Hey guys, sorry it's been a while, but I hope you've had a merry, Martin, Jolly, Holly, Chris Hanukkah days. The reason I've been gone is because I've been trying to recover myself from this comment, and it's made me do a lot of thinking. Therefore, I have decided to rebrand myself into a realistic animation YouTuber, so I hope you guys stick with me for that. Anyways, back when I started drafting this video, it was going to be about Rome, but, you know, the meme's a little dead at this point, and I don't want to be late to the party, so yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about Rome recently. But instead, I've decided I'm going to talk about alternate history. Yeah. Now, I'm no intellectual, so there will be a lack of critical analysis and in-depth theory crafting in this video. And yes, I don't know what those mean, they just sounded cool. But what I will be doing is what I think are some cool scenarios that could have happened if history had branched perhaps another way. First things first, a man who needs no introduction, a hero of the ages, an individual who all can agree has never done anything wrong. Kanye, you know him, you love him, Christopher Columbus. Known for discovering the Americas, which he kinda did and kinda didn't do, but we don't fucking know. What we do know he did is fuck a lot of shit up. And people, whatever the case may be, we aren't here to talk about the atrocities he may or may not have committed during his life, but instead to talk about his sailing expeditions. As many of you know, Columbus didn't know America was here. He believed that sailing west from Europe would land him in Asia, which he was about half right. The globe was round, but there was just a massive continent in the way. It is still debated whether Columbus ever knew he landed on a new continent in his lifetime. He may have thought the whole time that he was in China, but that's hard to say. I've seen conflicting sources on that. Through this video, I also want to just do a little disclaimer. I do call where Columbus's goal was China, but I think he was trying to overall get to Asia in general because, you know, spices, come on. But what we do know for sure is that Columbus originally landed in the Bahamas and sort of fumbled around Cuba before heading home. On his second and third voyages, he sailed around the backside of the Caribbean and brushed Venezuela. On his third voyage, he had the big dick energy and really pushed into the Caribbean Sea and tried to push onto what he thought was China. Although he was, of course, thwarted due to, you know, there being no way to get through. Yeah, unfortunately, the Panama Canal wasn't exactly up and running yet, which meant there was no way to get over to the Pacific. Of course, he didn't know this at the time, so I imagine he was pretty fucking stumped. Although, this does bring up a couple interesting scenarios. First scenario, what if there was a passage that Columbus and crew could have passed through and started making their way out into the Pacific towards Asia? I don't know what that would do to ocean currents, and I'm not smart enough to figure that out. Before we get into that though, the first thing we really need to know is that if this passage did exist in the location that the Panama Canal is today, Columbus would not have been the first guy to discover it. Columbus spent his first voyages sailing around the Caribbean mostly, and there was a guy by the name of Rodrigo de Bastida sailed along the top of South America all the way down to where this natural passage would have most likely been. It's safe to say this explorer would have gotten a lot more credit for his voyages for finding this passage, especially if he had had the resources to commit to exploring it. If this did exist, Columbus would have definitely gotten a hard-on and most certainly went to explore this passage on his fourth voyage, finally feeling like he was on his way to China. Long story short, Columbus would have probably been even more confused after finally making his way through the passage. A theory I could think that would be plausible is that Columbus would have been determined to find mainland China and would have went out into the Pacific expecting to find land, and that would have just not happened because there was so much more ocean than actually theorized by him. I've heard a lot of shit talked about Columbus, and I think he probably does deserve a good portion of it, but to be honest, I think there was kind of a hate bandwagon about 5 years ago where people just decided that he was, you know, worse than Hitler. And now this is not to downplay what he did, because, you know, being a guy with some money living in the 15th century, he probably did some fucked up shit, all right? Don't get me wrong. But compared to the other people, the other explorers of his era, I don't think he was probably out of the norm. And I suppose you could say that there's a difference between him and other explorers because other explorers don't get glorified or hadn't been glorified for as many years as he was. As I was saying before, Columbus was a notoriously stubborn man and most likely would have pushed on, desperate to find China. And would he have made it? Probably not. The real question is, would he have made it back alive with his crew? I'd say it really is hard to say. Columbus died of age-related reasons in 1506, and this was only a couple years after his 4th voyage had ended. It was possible that the excitement of possibly landing on China would have kept his old ticker going for a few more years, or the revitalized hope could have kept him going further than he actually did on his 4th voyage. But no matter what would have actually happened to the man, the impact that this passage would have had on the entire world would have been massive. I hope you folks enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I first want to say go get yourself checked out for mental illness. But I do appreciate it, and I thank you all. I hope you all had a great holiday season, and hell, maybe a good 4th of July, whenever this video comes out. Hope you have a great rest of your decade, and I will see you all in 2030.